All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, June 15th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, what a gigantic weekend we're going to be previewing tonight. I mean, this is what summer is all about. You've got a giant superhero action movie, you've got a big kids animated movie, you've also got a low budget comedy getting a semi wide release. This is an old fashioned summer, much like the summer of makes me think of the summer of 1989, one of the greatest
Oh.
summer movie seasons ever.
Why would you think
And
of that, Pat?
well, in summer of 89, you had, of course, Tim Burton's Batman opened up in June, kind of changed movies forever.
Mm-hmm.
And this weekend, we are previewing the opening weekend of The Flash, in which the main selling point, Michael Keaton as Batman, is back. I mean, here it is, Clayton. Flashback a month or two ago when we had Jeff Bach, Exhibitor Relations Co., had him on our gigantic summer preview episode, our double issue episode, and he was more hype than man. He was at 53% hype, and
Yep.
most of his hype was going towards DC's The Flash. We all got on board with that hype of Jeff Bach, and we basically said that was going to be the biggest movie this summer. And here we are
You
on the
said that.
eve of
You
that
said,
opening. I did say that. Did you
yeah.
not say that? Did you
No,
go with something else?
it wasn't my number one.
Was your number one The Little Mermaid?
I think it was, which
Yeah,
also is a mistake.
was a mistake. There were mistakes were made on that
Yeah.
episode, but here it is. The Flash is opening, and are we still at 53% hype, which is a lot of hype? Are we at that hype level? Are you at that hype level for The Flash?
No, I mean, I think we were really riding the lightning there. And,
Mhm.
we're not blaming Jeff Bach. Obviously, we're our own men. We can make our own decisions. We
Yeah.
did get swept up in the hype. Like, it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is Jeff Bach isn't the only one hyping this movie. I mean, Tom
No.
Cruise is out
Yes.
hyping this movie, saying it's one of the best films he's ever seen. I guess is he taken over already? Does he have an office at DC?
James Gunn?
James Gunn, is he? I
He's
guess
got
he's already moved in, right?
he's gotta have an office.
There's still some
Yes.
boxes he hasn't unpacked, I'm sure, some like old
Ri
trauma stuff.
right,
But
but he's got the office for sure.
but he's saying this is one of the best superhero movies he's ever seen. So the
Yes.
hype train is real. I mean, the issue with that is the reason all these people are chiming in is because the star of this film, other than
Mhm.
Michael Keaton, obviously, is Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller. Miller. I don't know why I said it like that. Fuck, it's a rough feed. Ezra Miller. They have been absent from the promotion up until they walked the red carpet very
Yep.
recently.
At the
Now I
big
have
premiere just the last night or the night before in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, if she could.
so I haven't heard any long form interviews or any snippets from what they have said. So, I mean, it is just basically showing that they are alive and
Yes.
free and walking and able to, exist in the world in some capacity. So that is positive, I guess, for
Right.
them and for DC a little bit. But I think what's lacking in this is, I'm not seeing Michael Keaton on Hot Ones, right?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing Ezra Miller on Snack Wars. I'm
Well,
not seeing that stuff.
Ezra
Yeah,
Miller could
but
not
I know.
legally, I don't even think could be on a Snack Wars or a Hot Ones. I do not think I don't think the law would allow Ezra Miller to handle those hot sauces that Hot Ones
Yeah,
puts out.
but yeah, because they
Yeah,
are
those could be
weapons in
weapons. Yeah.
some states. So
Yeah.
the thing is that I know that, but what I'm saying is, in a perfect world,
Right.
you would have the star of your movie, the titular star of your movie,
Right.
eating hot wings.
Yes,
Okay,
100%.
In
Yes.
a perfect world,
In a perfect
right?
world, Ezra Miller is eating hot wings on Hot Ones. And
We,
because there's no legal troubles, there's no looming incarcerations,
yeah.
Ezra Miller would just be free to promote and to vomit from hot sauces on Hot
So
Ones. Yes.
so we don't live in a perfect world, obviously,
No.
okay? And so that I think I mean, this is an issue we're running into with no talk shows because even though, the Jimmys and the Stevens and whoever else still has a show.
The Seths,
Lily Singh still has a show, right? Lily
possibly,
Singh's still
yeah,
doing her show.
unconfirmed, yeah.
So they are not available to, sing funny songs, play funny games, do any of that stuff, right?
Right, right.
That's what we're missing here, is that we're not hearing from anybody in this cast about this movie.
And I
Really.
think that the lack of the late night chat shows because of the writer's strike, that I think really affects the ability to use Michael Keaton, because Michael Keaton is not going to go on Hot Ones. Michael Keaton is not going to do the internet goof shows, and I don't think Michael Keaton is going to do the podcast circuit. I mean, you may get him. Maybe I'll be proved wrong, and a WTF with Michael Keaton drops in the next day
There
or
already
two.
was a WTF with Michael Keaton, but it was
There
years
already
ago.
was. So an update. He calls into the garage on his car phone or something like that. But Michael Keaton would have thrived promoting this movie on the late night talk shows.
Mhm.
He's an old school star. You sit Michael Keaton next to Dave, and they talk about the Flash, and that would have got people to go. But if the writers are on strike, Dave isn't on the air right now, so you can't use Michael Keaton as a promotional tool as effectively. He's not gonna go on Instagram and
Mhm.
TikTok and promote it that way. Michael Keaton was gonna go on the late night chat shows, gonna present a top 10 list, but he can't do that right now because of the writer's strike. I
Well,
mean,
there is a Michael Shannon Vanity Fair break down your career acting roles video that dropped 2 weeks ago. Michael Shannon is in this movie,
he is. Now,
but
did you see that? Because Michael Shannon basically talked about how little he thought of this new Flash movie, or at least his role as Zod. He said is not very good in this Flash movie. He basically
he
said it.
personally thinks he's bad, or he thinks the part that was written for
The
him is
part is
bad.
bad. No, he knows he's great. And he's not
Wow.
humble. He compared it unfavorably to the way he got to play Zod in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. He thought that was a much weightier role, and I think he said something to the effect of, "In this movie, I'm just there to be an obstacle for the hero." So, which is,
Wow. So
I don't think it
wow.
was an effective use of his promotional time for Michael Shannon to say that he was better in Man of Steel than he is in the movie that's opening nationwide this weekend.
Yeah, so many of these actors from these DC movies are really complimentary to Zack Snyder. That seems to
Yes.
be something that they love to work with him. Whatever you say about Zack Snyder's films, it
Right.
seems like the bulk of the people who worked for him on set
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
liked him. So, I mean, that's something that, I mean, that can not be undersold when it comes to why these DC movies have kind of lost the plot. Not necessarily because of the dark and grimness of the Snyderverse, but him being a guy that everybody kind of liked. And listen, there might be people who hated him. There might be actors who had a really tough time with him, but they don't
Right.
seem to have been speaking up about it.
Right. 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 So it's a very rough promotional tour for the Flash because Ezra Miller is got pending charges all over the place, so you can't use Ezra Miller. And I don't think right now the audience really wants to hear much from Ezra Miller. Michael Shannon is out there saying that movie is not as good as the Superman movie that he did 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And then Michael Keaton is filming Beetlejuice 2 right now. That is
that's
what Michael
right.
Keaton is doing. He is
Yep.
in Hawaii, I assume. If you're filming Beetlejuice 2, it must mean that you were in Hawaii.
Oh, I wish, but I don't think that's the sequel they went with.
There must be a sequence at least, but we'll see. We'll
They
get to
have
that
to.
someday. But Michael Keaton is on set with Tim Burton when a Batman movie is coming out. So
Mhm.
how things change, but how they stay the same. But
Speaks volumes. Yeah. I mean,
now,
how are you feeling about this? I mean, I'm feeling really low on this because of I do feel like the hype has dissipated on this because I think something like the Spider-Man cartoon, across the Spider-Verse, has stolen some superhero thunder here because this is also a multiverse movie. And it's going to be weighed up against that Spider-Man movie, which
It,
everybody is flipping out about.
it is, but here's what I'll say. Again, the promotion has been tough for this movie, but they have aired a lot of TV spots and they have let the public know Batman 89 is in this movie. Michael
Mm-hmm.
Keaton Batman is in this movie. The public knows that. And I think that is enough. And they did the smart thing of not blowing the Michael Keaton Batman return on a Batgirl television movie for HBO Max. I think
Yes.
had they aired that movie a year ago, The Flash would have been in big trouble for its opening weekend. So
Oh,
they've
yeah.
got the trump card of Michael Keaton Batman 89 is in this movie. And I think that's going to be huge. All the promotional difficulties aside, I think that's going to be huge. The Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, this is the third weekend of that movie. And this is not, movie's doing great, but this is not Avatar: The Way of Water.
Mm-hmm.
This is not
It's not
a movie.
Endgame.
It's not Endgame. So I don't think the third weekend of this movie is going to greatly affect The Flash. Either people want to see The Flash or they don't. I don't think they're going to
Mm-hmm.
say, I got to see Spider-Man again. It's not that level of phenomenon. I don't think.
I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe.
Maybe, but I don't think it's that. I think The Flash will live or die on its own interest level. And I think there is interest in this movie. And I think, listen, look at last weekend. We all went under on Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And that movie, at least for its opening weekend, beat the expectations of that time,
But we
of
went
that
under
weekend.
by $5 million or something. I mean, Pat, we didn't say that thing was going to make 40 and it made
No,
60.
no.
We said it was
But
going to make in the mid 50s.
But what I think is there is just a hunger to see big movies right now. And The Flash is the biggest movie coming out right now. It came into the summer as one of the biggest movies of the summer. I think people are going to go to it on the high end of these expectations.
But Pat,
My
can I just really quick look at
sure.
the movies that DC has put out right before this? You have Shazam 2, total tank job.
Total,
Before
but
that,
no
Black
Batman
Adam,
89 in Shazam.
total tank job,
Total
right?
tank job. But even Black Adam opened to 65, 66. So for the Flash, we're looking at these projections of the Flash being in the high 60s. I think that the Flash has to open, quote unquote, significantly higher than Black Adam did. The interest for this is higher. It's a summer movie. It has a lot more going for it. So to me, the expectations, the projections of the Flash opening at Black Adam level, that's lower than I could go. I cannot go that low.
Well, I agree with you in the sense that this says it's the Flash. This is the Flash's movie, but
Yeah.
it's that old superhero movie trick that Marvel has done expertly, where they've
Mhm.
done, oh, Captain America Civil War. That's not just the Captain America movie, right?
Right. Right.
Doctor Strange in what is that with the mouth
Multiverse of
of
Madness.
Multiverse of Madness?
Yeah, yeah.
Not just a Doctor Strange movie,
Right.
right?
Right.
They've done this numerous times where it's they have added other characters and made it more central to the universe than just a normal sequel where you would just have here's Captain America and he's fighting a guy in Washington or
Right.
whatever,
I mean,
he's fighting a
remember
Hydra.
the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, right? Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
They sold that effectively as a sneaky Iron Man movie. They told you that and
He's in it.
Spider-Man is gigantic,
Yeah.
but they did do a great job of saying Robert Downey Jr. is the co-star of the movie. And that
Yeah.
was, I think, a great example of what you're saying, that the title of the movie is this, but you're really coming to also see this other superhero as
You're
well.
seeing Batman. You're seeing
Right.
You're seeing a bunch of Batman, supposedly. You're seeing a bunch of different characters, which I guess there's a bunch of spoilers out there, which we're not going to talk about because we haven't seen the movie and we don't want to ruin anything, obviously. But
Right.
this has to. to be a success, this
Yes.
75 that's floating around as the opening is terrible for this movie
It
because
has to
of
go
those
higher.
elements. Well, I
And I
don't
think it will. I
you
think it
think it
will.
will.
I think it
I
will.
think to be deemed a success, it has to go higher, but I don't necessarily think it's going to.
Wow. 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 So do you think that the interest has waned in the last month or so? Like, do you
Well,
feel any
yeah.
kind of a backlash to it? Do you feel
And
like
I
people?
wouldn't go as strong as backlash because here, let's just make something very clear here
Okay.
about the Ezra Miller situation. Okay. For regular, everyday people who don't live on the internet, and they exist,
They do exist.
and the reason you don't know they exist, people on the internet, is because they're not on the internet, but they
Right.
exist, and there's
Right.
many of them.
Right.
They
They're
don't know who the
covered in
fuck.
soot. They're covered in soot,
Yep. Yep.
or
They bring a lunch pail. They bring a lunch pail to work. There's a term for them. They're called Joe lunch pails,
yep.
right? And the Susie crocheters, right?
Yep. Yep.
They're the
They
ones who
bring
crochet on the
crocheters to
bus.
work. Yep.
Yeah, to crochet so they can crochet at work. The thing about Ezra Miller is that this controversy, whatever they may have done or not done, I am not saying who cares because whatever happened in that situation, it's bad for all parties and especially whatever happened to the people that were quote unquote the victims. I don't know what happened, right? I'm not going to
Right.
talk about that because that's not
Right.
what this is about. But what I'm
Right.
going to say is that this isn't Mel Gibson getting drunk and calling and being anti-Semitic or something like that, because he is a star that everybody knew. That
Mm.
was a movie star at the height of their power, and he was on every 60 minutes. He was talking to everybody, trying to apologize, right? He was a generational star. Ezra Miller has done a few movies that nobody really likes. I mean, he did a few movies that were critically acclaimed. We need to talk about Kevin. I liked Perks of Being a Wallflower. I thought they were really good in that. But then the Harry Potter spin-off Beasts movie that nobody likes, even the fans, right?
Right.
So Ezra Miller is not a known quantity other than the few Flash things he's done and a few critically acclaimed movies and a franchise spinoff that nobody likes. So this is not a case of Joe Lunchpail, Susie Crocheter being like, I refuse to go see this movie because Ezra Miller's in it.
Right.
There are
Most
people
people
who
just don't know.
they don't know. And
They don't
maybe if
know.
they did know, they would refuse, but they just don't know.
Right, right.
Right.
So
So,
the back you're saying there's not a backlash because there's not enough awareness of any of this for a backlash to exist. Which
yes. And it's,
I think that's probably true. The Ezra Miller
yeah.
stuff is just under the radar because Ezra Miller is not famous beyond Twitter famous.
Yes, absolutely. So, will there be people who abstain because of Ezra Miller? Yes. But is it going to be enough to point the finger at if this movie underperforms? I don't believe so. The thing that will make this movie underperform is the fact that there is so much at the theater right now, right? And you are saying that people want to just see big movies. Well, dude, they have big movies. They've got a Transformers movie that you have even said did better than expected, right?
But
They
people
have a
want new
Spud
big movies. They
but
want
yeah,
new big
but
movies.
they want new, good big movies. So
Sure.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, right? People are still going to see Little Mermaid. People are still seeing Guardians, right? These are all huge movies that people like. And The
Right.
Flash is not necessarily a slam dunk when it comes to people liking and wanting to see it because it is at the tail end of a dead sort of storytelling, which is the DCEU, because it's all going to get reconfigured. So there is a level of this being a dead end. And I know people are saying, oh, it's the beginning of the new. It's like, it's kind of like, it feels to me like the waning, the waning kind of death throes of that old DCEU. Okay.
Well, to move on to something else, here's what I'll say about yes, there are big movies at the theater that are going to make it harder, perhaps, for some of the new movies to open well. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem for The Flash, but I do think the existence of other options will be a huge problem for Pixar's Elementals, which also comes out this weekend.
Well, you're jumping off the Flash so fast. Why?
Well,
Why?
we got to keep it moving. We got a big weekend to get through,
This guy's got
and
places to be.
I think Elementals is going to be the opener this weekend that really suffers from a crowded marketplace, because Little Mermaid and I think Spider-Verse affects it here. I think those are two movies that are going to super serve the audience that was going to consider Elementals. I mean, Little Mermaid made 23 million last weekend. People like that movie. Uh, that is the family. And listen, rats need their cheese. It's been a tenet of this show from the beginning. But I do not think the
Pixar movies aren't
rats.
for rats. They're for middle-aged men.
All right, preach. Talk
I
about
mean,
talk
it's a
about
thing.
Pixar.
I mean, listen, I've gotten shellacked by guests on this show about my opinions on Pixar, how it's a waning brand,
Yeah.
and how, listen, I will give this. This was a power. This was a artistic and commercial power since the mid '90s. Okay, and it's losing steam. It
Mm-hmm.
is. Look at the
Mm-hmm.
facts. And I don't think it's just all the movies going to Disney Plus. That was sort of it's one of those things where it's like one of the reasons why they're not doing as well, but it's inevitable. There's going to be a point where Illumination doesn't do well at the box office anymore. The Illumination movies. There is, and it could be 50 years from now, but it's gonna happen, right? Because
Right.
that's just how things happen. And Pixar does not make movies that a broad audience wants to see anymore because they're making the same movie over and over again. Okay. And this movie, the reviews are terrible. And Pixar movies are not just for kids, Pixar movies are also for adults, right? People our age, elder millennials and Gen X and people above. Like, they all claim to love all these Pixar movies, but I don't think there's an appetite for them anymore, other than, yeah, I'll put it on for my kid when it's on Disney Plus, but am I really going to schlep my 4 kids, or to a movie theater to watch flame people and steam people? Like, what is this, like a
And water
Rankin
people.
and water people? Is this like a Rankin Bass Christmas special? Like, what is this shit? I think the reviews are terrible. People are not psyched about Pixar in general, right? And dude, this movie's going to open lower than Good Dinosaur, who this is the
Oh
same
my God.
director. So this
Oh
guy
my
just
God.
needs to go. He's the anti John Ratzenberger. He's the worst. He's the bad luck charm for this place.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see it as a movie that's going to make kids rush out and see it, because the imagery, whether it's done well or not, or like cutting edge or whatever, it does not look appealing. It looks, like when you're looking at something like Spidey, and then you look at Elemental, you're like, okay, well, which one do I want to see if I'm a kid?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So on the note that you mentioned in the reviews,
Hmm.
I would say a little addendum there is that Disney debuted this movie at Cannes, and
Mm,
all the reviews there were pretty bad.
terrible.
That movie came out, the critics who were there all hated it, had like a 40 or 50% Rotten Tomatoes score coming out of that screening. The reviews now that have come in the last few weeks have ticked it up. It is up to 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, or 78%. Here's what I'll say on that. A, that's still low for a Pixar movie. I mean, we're talking about
Yeah.
a franchise that used to be 90+% fresh, time after time after time, Oscar nominees. So 78% is not good. I would say this is also a situation where this is like when a newspaper gets a story wrong, and the front page of the newspaper is this guy killed someone, and then a week later, oh, it actually, he didn't kill someone, but the correction's on page 29, you
Hmm.
know? And I think this situation with the reviews is that coming out of con, the Elemental getting trashed by critics, that got all the headlines. That's when everyone paid attention to whether Elementals was good or not. And I think the new reviews are not going to get that level of coverage. So people are
Hmm.
just going to remember the stories they heard a month ago, oh, this movie really got ripped apart and it stings. So I don't think the new reviews will help. It's like a page 27 correction.
Yeah,
Everyone still
absolutely.
thinks that Elemental murdered its wife.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think Indy 5 is falling in that same category too, right? I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
I mean, nobody's gonna if you said that that was gonna be at some point in the '70s, no one's gonna care because all the reviews were tearing it apart, and nobody's gonna go back and be like, "Oh, okay, well, now it's good all of a sudden." I
Right.
think Elementals I mean, we're seeing it even by Pixar. Listen, Pixar just put out the trailer for their next film,
Oh boy.
right? And it's about space aliens that abduct this boy, and of course, space aliens, it's like a whole it's like the DMV, right? Because everything with Pixar is like, "Oh, look, everything's a fucking DMV," right?
Right. Right.
So, it's all bureaucracy. It's everything is run by bureaucracy or right whatever. I can't say that word, but you know what I mean.
We all know what you mean. Yeah.
Everyone knows what I mean, but the thing with that is that they are so hyped on Elementals that I guess they're like, "Hey, but this one's coming." Why would you be releasing that trailer when you are opening on Father's Day, a weekend that you used to own, Pixar,
Right.
right? You are putting out a trailer for your new movie. Put out that trailer before that movie in the theaters so people see that before Elementals, right? That's what you do, or Elemental. That's
It's
what you do.
one singular
I know.
elemental.
I keep thinking
I
about
know.
yeah,
It's
more.
several beasts. It's Rise of the Beasts
Yep,
and a single elemental.
it's a single Elemental, right?
Yeah,
So
single
that's the thing. Is
elemental.
like they are so down on this movie. They want you to forget about it. I mean, it was
Yeah.
akin to them putting out the Marvels 2 trailer when Quantumania was coming into theaters, and that was a backfire because everybody was like, "Oh, wow, Marvels looks terrible."
Yeah. 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 I mean, Elemental, it is amazing that a year ago, Lightyear opened up.
Mm,
And that movie, of course, was the bizarre way of spinning off Toy Story, where they just, again, we'll say it till the day we die, which will be hundreds of years from now. They should have just done the toy. Why didn't they just do the toy for Lightyear? It's just do the toy.
mhm.
But they didn't do
Yeah,
that. And that movie was a bomb. That movie opened up to $51 million, and that was considered a disaster for a summer Pixar movie.
yeah,
Elemental is tracking at this point, what, in the 30s? That a
yep,
35 to 45? Is that the tracking on this film right now? I mean, that is mind-boggling that
yeah,
a Pixar summer movie at this point is tracking that low,
yeah,
and nobody is out there saying something's off, the tracking's off.
mhm.
I mean, you've got Box Office Pro is projecting and predicting $33 million opening weekend for Elemental. That is stunning.
Yeah, I mean,
Stunning.
obviously, it's not gonna open as big as something that is a franchise, it wouldn't open as big
Right.
as a Incredibles or a Toy Story or a Dory or any of those, Nemo, Dory, whatever you wanna call those. If they made Ratatouille with a 2 in the middle,
Right. Right.
that would open huge or be expected to open huge, and
Right. But
Lightyear was
those are
expected
movies
to
that
open huge.
open those
What do you
those
say?
are those franchise Pixar movies, those are movies that open in 100 million plus.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying is that the originals don't open as high as those, but the originals open higher than $33 million.
yes, in 2023 dollars for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
It's um it, I mean, I'm looking at this cast list here, and obviously animation, movie stars are not gonna sell a movie as much as they are on in live action, but there is also just no giant star that they could uh use to promote this movie. I'm looking at this cast list, and it's like I love her, but Catherine O'Hara, Wendy McClendon Covey from Reno 911,
Mhm.
Joe Pera is listed. I mean, if you're doing a Pixar movie and Joe Pera is high enough on the call sheet that he's making the Wikipedia, I mean, you're in
Yeah.
rough shape. You're in rough shape if
I mean,
that's one of your top 5 voice names.
if you're launching an Adult Swim cartoon, yeah,
Right,
go for
right.
it. Oh, put Joe Pera above the title of whatever it's called.
100%. Yes, yes. If this is Adult Swim, your cartoon could be called Joe Pera something something something, whatever
Yeah,
he
yeah,
does. We
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
But if his name appears,
Has conversations with socks, whatever it is.
great.
Yeah,
Make that be 18 hours straight on Adult Swim. People will lap that up,
yeah.
you know, in the dorm rooms. But in a movie theater where you've got to pay tickets
No,
and you got Joe
no one's
Pera in your
paying to
top
see Joe.
5,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, right,
yeah.
right. So
Sorry.
this is there's no big stars selling this year. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's no Billy Crystal and John Goodman, you know, monsters. Though it was John Goodman, right? Paired
Yeah,
with
oh
Billy
yeah.
Crystal? Yeah. There's no Billy Crystal here. There's Joe Pera,
Mm-hmm.
who, listen, maybe he's the modern day Billy Crystal. I don't know.
Could
I
be.
don't could be,
Could
but
be.
I don't think so. Um, you know, this movie, I think, could go even lower than what the tracking has. I think this movie could just completely fall off the cliff. I think this is the movie that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, that's where the effect is going to be. I think less on the superhero movie and more on the animated film that's opening.
Well, so what did The Good Dinosaur open to?
I mean, I would bet that open to 38 million. As you look it up, that's my prediction that that movie opened up to 38 million. And that's also, you know, we don't do inflation on this show, but that's a movie that opened
$2015.
$2015. Yeah. So,
$39 million.
wow. Yep.
Now, that opened in November, and that was opened the
Right.
same year as another Pixar movie because
That might have been
they
Inside Out in the summer and then Good
yeah.
Dinosaur in the fall. And that's why Good Dinosaur sort of skated by because Inside Out was such a monster hit. This
Mhm.
is a summer opening. This is June. I'm sorry, but 30 something million-dollar opening for a Pixar movie in June will be a disaster. Will be a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to see, like, what, it looks like it will be the lowest opener. I mean, the likelihood
Could this
okay.
hit could this go under 30? I mean, that's
Oh,
to
yeah,
me at this
absolutely.
point.
So the low bar okay, the lowest opening for any Pixar movie is the first one, which was Toy Story, and
Sure.
that opened at 29.1.
In
So there is a
94?
in 95. So there's a distinct
95.
possibility that this could open lower than that, right?
Right, right.
If it doesn't, it would I just think it's likely that this thing opens lower than both Onward and The Good Dinosaur, which both
Yes.
opened to 39,
Oh my
right?
god.
So this guy, this director could beat his personal worst. Like The Good Dinosaur, this movie could actually open lower than that. And then that even made 333 worldwide. That ain't happening with this movie.
No, no, because I mean, obviously, the worldwide business is a lot different than it was in the Good Dinosaur days, and you cannot count on being saved overseas anymore. You just can't.
Yeah.
And there's not a again, there's not a star in this cast that I think has gigantic worldwide appeal. Again,
Mhm.
Joe Pera. I don't know if Adult Swim has clearance overseas. I don't know if it has clearance in Europe. Maybe they're able to get the website over there and they could watch the his work on Adult Swim via the website. But I do not think that Joe Pera is a giant draw in Europe and it's going to be
No.
or in China. I don't think so. Again, I don't follow his career that closely, but I do not think he's an international movie star that will get people to watch Elemental in China, in London and Paris, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
In
So
Japan, I don't think so.
let's hold off on our numbers until the end
Sure, sure.
because we do have another movie to talk about,
We do.
right?
There was a third wide release this weekend. I mean,
We're
listen, I love this weekend that we're getting a big superhero movie, we're getting a kids cartoon, and we're getting a comedy.
mhm. Uh,
So,
it's called The Blackening,
mhm.
and it's based on a Comedy Central short, correct?
Yes, it is. So, all the guff we just gave Adult Swim, Comedy Central Digital, they got a movie spinoff. They put out a sketch online and now it's a movie.
So, this is a Lionsgate release. It is a comedy. It is about what if a horror movie only had a black cast,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And this movie is not open it's opening wide, but it's only opening in, like, 1,800 locations, which is a good number for a comedy like this.
Right. So it's
But
getting like the Magic Mike's Last Dance house party level release, right? Because
yeah.
those movies also opened, I think, sub 2000 theaters.
And I'll tell you what, I've seen a decent amount of commercials for this.
Mhm.
So, it is definitely out there. Now, I don't think I'm the main demo for this,
Okay.
right? But I do think that there is an interest here for something that is scary and funny. Horror comedy is always hard, though. I mean, that's the thing about this one is that those are really kind of tough. And I'm gonna look up real quick what those a haunted house made, which is
Well, you
the
look that up. I mean, I'm going to the Scary Movie franchise, which I think is the most
oh, I mean,
successful
that's
horror parody
you're looking at the
franchise
fucking
ever.
crown jewel.
Crown Jewel. I mean, listen, July 7th, 2000,
That was
the
such a long
Wayans
time ago,
Brothers
dude.
Scary Movie opened 2. Could you even guess? What is this number? Scary Movie, 2000.
50 million.
Okay, you went a little high there, so now it won't sound as impressive. Opened to $42 million on its way to
Okay,
making 157 domestic, 277 worldwide. So that movie made another $120 million outside of North America. I mean, the
that was
Wayans brothers were on fire.
this isn't the Wayans brothers though.
This is not the
This
Wayans
movie, The
brothers.
Blackening, is not the Wayans brothers, okay?
Right.
So, I think and this is a Wayans brothers movie that I'm invoking, but this is, a movie that opened in 2013 called A Haunted House,
Mhm.
and that opened to $18 million. So, that was when was that? That was January. So, there was a God, what is that franchise that is they just had a sequel that opened like a year ago that was a horror movie that was very similar to
Is
this.
that the one that's like a parody of the Purge movies?
Well, it started as a parody of the Purge movies,
It was like
and
the
then
Meet the
Meet the Blacks. Was it Meet the Blacks?
Yes, Meet the
God, I hope
Blacks.
it's is that
Yes,
yeah, and
Meet
then
the
there was a
Blacks was, a
2016.
2016 movie directed by Dion Taylor, so that did have a sequel.
Yes, which only opened in 420 theaters and made $1 million in 2021 in June. So,
Mhm, mhm.
can't really use that as a comp because it opened in so few theaters.
Yes, yes.
But, I mean, there is a history of this. I mean, I was giving you shit for Scary Movie, obviously, it's the crown jewel of those sort of
It's
films.
the crown jewel, yeah.
But, I mean, there is an appetite for this, and could this hit a chord here? Could this be a movie that all of a sudden people say, "You know what? It's been a while since this sort of movie has come out, like a horror comedy.
Mhm.
Let's go see this thing." I mean, it
Yeah,
could portend good things if this movie opens well for the other comedies coming this summer.
right.
No Hard Feelings, um,
Joyride,
Strays,
Strays, yeah.
Joyride, yeah, those movies. I mean, this could portend because listen, they have this projected on Box Office Pro to open higher than The Machine did, right?
Yes, The Machine only opened to $5 million in its 3-day.
And there's no way that About My Father will have had a bigger opening weekend than this film, right? So those are not movies to comp this to. This is an entirely different sort of film. So this is an interesting one.
It is. You know, uh, this
Who's in it?
one so this one, the actors are, comedians. Dwayne Perkins is the co-writer of this, and I think, yeah, he's in it playing Dwayne. Jermaine Fowler is the
Okay.
name that I recognize. Jay Farrow, formerly of Saturday Night Live, is also
Okay.
in this. And then
Okay.
I think the rest of the names are people who were in a sketch group together that
Okay.
made the original sketch. So I don't think anyone else on here is too famous outside of like alternative comedy circles, but
Yeah.
I would say Jermaine Fowler is probably the biggest name, which listen, a movie like this is going to have to be the type of movie that makes comedy stars. You
Yes.
know,
Absolutely.
I don't think this is a low budget movie. If this does well, it'll make some careers or take some careers to the next level, but you're not going to have a movie star in this film. And I
It
think that's
also
okay. It's the
uh,
premise. It's does
eh,
the premise seem attractive to an audience, and does just the idea of going to a comedy movie. See, that's got to be the draw here.
and horror doesn't necessarily need stars. I mean, you can have horror
Right.
movies that do well because they have a star in them that are stars in that genre, like um, the Hawk, Ethan Hawke being in The Black Phone was an added value because he is a star when it comes to those sort of genre movies, right? So
Right,
you
right.
can have a plus here. Now, another gentleman who's in this is, and I pardon me if I say his name wrong, Sinqua Walls, who is the co-star of the White Man Can't Jump remake that dropped on Hulu.
Okay.
That seem to have fallen on deaf ears. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to bump this movie up at all. I know I watched it because the original is my favorite movie of all time, so I had to watch it. But I do think it might have been a movie that a lot of people saw. Maybe they liked him. Maybe they saw, oh, he's got a movie in theaters. I'm gonna go
Right,
see that guy in theaters. It's a
right,
possibility for sure.
right, right. I mean, I think that this will slightly overperform expectations, or at least be on the higher end.
Well, does it
Um,
open bigger than The Machine?
yes, I do think it opens bigger than The Machine. I think
Okay.
it opens higher than $5 million. I think
Okay.
there is also the idea of there being an audience that this will super serve, and I think it's going to get people out. And like you said, you look at the history of these horror comedies, and it is your scary movies, and I think they're movies that serve a more diverse audience. So I think
And it's opening on Juneteenth weekend, which is something that they did intentionally, obviously, because
mhm.
it's Father's Day weekend, but it's also no, yeah, it is Father's Day weekend,
Yeah,
right?
it's both back to back.
Both,
Yep,
right? So a lot of flower arrangements being bought. So
yep.
I think that you buy your dad flowers. I guess you don't buy your dad flowers. What do you
No, you
buy
buy
your
him
dad?
socks. You buy him
Buy him
socks.
socks, right? It's a lot of
Yeah,
socks being bought, I guess.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think that this is definitely opening on the right weekend, right? I mean, it's opening on the right weekend, which is good. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, it could portend well for comedy.
yeah. So do you want to do it? Do you want to give predictions? And then we have a bit of news to give after the predictions. But I
Yeah,
say we
yeah.
do the
Let's do
predictions
it.
now.
Let's do it. Okay.
All
Let's
right.
look.
So I mean, I'll, do you would you like the honor of going first and giving your predictions first? So
I'll go first. Yeah, why
we'll
not?
attach numbers to the three openers.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. I think. Slam doink number one, The Flash. I mean, I don't think
Has to
this
be. Yeah.
movie is going to. There's no way it doesn't open to number one because
No
even
way.
if it makes 50 million, it's going to open to number one.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I'm gonna go. I really feel like this movie is gonna make $72 million opening weekend.
Wow.
$72 million in its first weekend.
Wow.
Number two. You know what?
He's
You want to
doing
get
it.
nuts?
Let's get nuts.
Let's get nuts. Number two, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Beat me to it.
I think that movie is gonna make 32, 33 million dollars in its third weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, it's gonna be Elemental. I wish I could say Transformers. That's not gonna happen. But Elemental, and I think Elemental opens to $30 million. It's gonna.
Okay.
I think it's a slam doink that this movie makes under Good Dinosaur and Onward.
Wow. Wow.
Right? I mean, could this even be like a Strange World situation? That's crazy. It couldn't be that low. Pixar hasn't fallen that low.
We'll see.
But I think it's gonna be pretty bad for this. Then number what is it? It's gonna be number 4 is Transformers. I think Rise of the Beasts is gonna have a pretty big drop because I do think Flash is a movie that's gonna eat its lunch at this point.
Okay.
So number 4. And then number 5, Little Mermaid, still going strong. And I think, listen, when you look at all these other movies, Elemental maybe has, some interest when it comes to the ladies because it's got like a flame woman or whatever. But I think
Mm-hmm.
they're all going to Little Mermaid and singing along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think Little Mermaid's gonna just keep holding strong.
And what number do you give the Blackening? You haven't gotten to that yet in the
I think
rankings, but
Blackening is probably going to be sixth. Which
yep.
I think it'll make about like $7 million. I'm going low
Okay.
on this, but I
Okay.
think it's gonna beat out Guardians,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Because Guardians, there's just like so much stuff to serve that audience, and the Guardians is
Mm-hmm.
still going pretty relatively strong because I think it's a well-liked movie, but I don't think it can beat out The Blackening, unless The Blackening really craters.
All right. So I will now give you my top 10. Number one, of course, is going to be The Flash.
Slam
And
doink.
I am going to go $90 million. I think
Alright.
it gets there. I think it's a big one. It has had as much promotion as you could get. Obviously, it's been troubled for having a star that could promote it, but they have advertised the hell out of this. It's got Michael Keaton Batman. I think it hits $90 million. So
Do
that's
you
number
think that
one.
this is gonna be a lot of walk-up business? Is that the situation here? Because
Oh,
the tracking
I
is low
I
on this.
I think so. I do think this is going to be a
Or
thing that
run-up. Is there gonna be a
really
lot of run-up, I guess?
not run up because it'll be an older audience, but I do think a walk up. I think a stroll up. I think a lot of people maybe will be using Razor scooters to get there. But
Oh,
I think
okay.
it will be some last minute like, you know what? It's Batman's in this. I gotta go see the Batman
So
movie.
you are not to jump into your top 5, but you're thinking that the Keaton Batman is gonna serve an audience who's not online and talking about it, right?
Yes.
In the
Yes, we
sense that
talked about this last week. Yeah.
it's gonna be a 50-year-old, or it's gonna be, a
Or
60-year-old who's gonna
or
say,
or even I do think there's younger people who maybe aren't talking about this, but who have watched those Batman movies and are
"Mhm,
interested to see it on the big screen. Because Batman
okay."
89 has endured. A lot of big movies that are big at the time eventually don't stick the test of time. But I do think that Batman movie has, and I think I
I don't know. With young
well,
people, Nolan Batman
let
is
me get
Nolan
back to my
Batman.
let me
Nolan
get back
Batman
to
is a
my top
Batman.
5. So that's my number one pick is The Flash making $90 million. Number 2, I agree with you that it will not be Elemental. it will be Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, that movie could have such a hold that it could make like $35 million. It made
Mhm.
55 last weekend in its second, and it could make 35 million. So I think then that is number 2. Number 3, I'm going with not Elemental. I'm going with Transformers Rise of the Beast. I think it's number 3 because I think that we are going to have a Strange World situation. I think number 4, Elemental, makes like $21 million opening weekend. I think this movie tanks because Transformers made 60 last weekend. I think it'll drop to 24, 25 and still beat Elemental.
Holy
Elemental,
shit.
we on Monday are going to be dissecting a historic disaster in Pixar's Elemental. That I think is opening as low as 21, $22 million.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I
Well,
have that
Strange
at
World
number
opened to 12. Strange World opened to 12, so it's not gonna do that, but for Pixar
no.
level,
Oh,
it's
for
gonna
yeah. And Strange World opens at 12, but I think a 5-day weekend, so it probably for the 5-day had like 20 or so. But I think Elemental is just going to be a full-on disaster. So that's number 4.
wow.
Then number 5 has to be The Little Mermaid at a number that's going to be right behind Elemental. Right
Mm.
behind Elemental, I think. And I think The Little Mermaid factor is going to be huge because that movie's well liked and it's an easy choice for parents. And I think they're just going to see Little Mermaid again or finally catch it for the first time. So that's number 5. And then number 6 will be The Blackening. And I'm a little higher. I think this could get to 9. I mean, listen, if this movie
9.
opens up to 9 or 10, then we are talking about a movie that could, to some degree, make some stars here, make some comedy stars. So I'd love to see it. And I do think it could get as high as 9
9.
at
God,
number 6.
how low are we on comedies that a movie making $10 million is a sign that they could be a star? That's so rough for
True, but
comedy.
this is such an indie low budget movie.
Yeah,
This is and this is not like an Ace Ventura situation, even in '94,
that
where
was low
you've
budge.
got it was low budget, but it's the lead actor coming off of a huge network hit TV show. None of
Mhm.
the comedy actors in The Blackening are coming off an In Living Color level hit on
Yeah.
broadcast television. So this is
Or if they were in,
very low
like,
budget.
Abbott Elementary, and one of
Exactly.
the stars of Abbott Elementary was in this movie and then just popped off.
Right, right, right. So you don't have that here. This is pretty low budget. So I do think a 9 or $10 million opening weekend would be a big overperform. And yeah, I think it's gonna slightly overperform. I think people are gonna wanna go see a comedy this weekend.
All right. Well, Pat, then do we want to talk about this news here?
Let's get into it. Last thing today, there is some release schedule news via Disney Marvel. They have pushed back a couple of movies. They say because of production issues. I don't think either of us agree with that, but the gist of it is that the Captain America movie, which has been retitled, it is no longer New World Order anymore. I
Yes,
don't think that is
it is
the
not.
name of it. Um, so that Captain America movie was supposed to open in May 2024 and it has now been pushed back to July 2024. So Captain America Brave New World was going to open May 3rd and it is now moved to July 26, 2024. Now, July 2024, Marvel was going to have the Thunderbolts movie
Mhm.
open, and they have moved that from July 26th to December 20th. So they've basically taken their May movie and moved it to July, their July movie moved it to December, and in that those movies' places, they're taking Deadpool 3 and moving it up from end of the year into the vacated May slot. So,
Hmm.
Clayton, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to tee you up. Do you think that either of these moves actually has anything to do with the writer's strike or production issues?
I mean, not that's not the main reason, no. I
No.
think they are really trying to figure out what they're gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Because they know Guardians does not reflect what's coming, right? Guardians is what people loved about Marvel to begin with, and that's why that movie's doing well. Everything else that's been trying to push things forward has underperformed, right?
Mhm.
Or at the very least, not been liked. Okay. So I think there's some reconfiguring going on here. I think they are really going to try and figure out how to make these movies feasible because they had to change the name of the Captain America movie because New World Order is like there's some conspiracy theory about the New World Order, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. I'm surprised it even got put out there in at all as the name,
Well, and
right? Because
also
it's like
famously, there is the legendary pro wrestling stable,
NWO.
the NWO New World Order. So, I mean, listen, we all know that Hulk Hogan is very litigious. He
Hmm.
sued Gawker, and they're out of business. And I think there's a chance Marvel remember. Someone brought that to Marvel. Marvel lawyer said, "Hey, Hulk Hogan, he's got the rights to the New World Order from his 1990s wrestling stable. We don't want him suing us, putting Marvel out of business the way he put Gawker out of business." So I
Absolutely,
could
and
see that
ruined
being the
Bubba the
reason
Love
for that.
Sponge's career. I mean, God,
Yes,
the guy never recovered. So
never.
I do think that there are more bigger issues, and I do think this is just a really good cover. This is great for
Yeah.
them. This is
Yep.
great that they have this excuse that the WGA is striking, right? And then, other guilds, I think SAG is also doing something in solidarity
Possibly
or
going to strike.
possibly
Yeah.
doing something in solidarity. I'm not up on my dues, so they don't send me any information as to what's going on in SAG. But so yeah, so I think this is just an easy excuse. I think, of course, yeah, is the writer strike affecting them? Of course it is. It's affecting everybody. But that's not the main reason here. That's not the main reason.
I think that um, the reason they're moving Deadpool up to next May and then pushing Captain America and Thunderbolts back is this coming November, they have the Marvels movie coming out,
Hmm.
which very possibly is going to tank. Very
It's going to
possibly.
be their elemental.
And then we had been talking about this. They were possibly going to have the three in a row of the Captain America of the Marvels movie, which is based off of a bunch of TV shows, Disney Plus shows that no one's watching. Then they would have had a Captain America movie without Chris Evans, also based on stuff that happens on streaming shows that no one's watching. And then they would have the Thunderbolts, which is just completely based on streaming shows that no one's watching. So that would have been three Marvel movies in a row that all could have tanked. I think
Hmm.
they pushed the last two out and switched Deadpool in because they want to buttress those with a hit. And
Yeah.
Deadpool 3 with Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine is as much of a slam doink hit as Marvel could possibly have right now. And they wanted to have it Marvel's bombs, but then hey, we're coming back in May with Deadpool 3, much like Guardians 3 this year. That will sort of make it seem as if the course is corrected. And then they could have those next two movies maybe bomb. And then maybe by then they've got an X-Men movie or something in the
Well,
works.
that's
But
and we did talk about this, and Pat, you're spot on for this. They need a home run. The problem here is Kevin Feige got his little fingies on Deadpool, so we'll see how he can fuck that up because he's
mhm,
the King Midas. He's turned into King Midas in reverse now at this point.
mhm.
So the thing though with Deadpool is that we talked X-Men, and Deadpool is an X-Men character, right?
Mhm.
And so I think there's a huge possibility that they soft launch X-Men in this Deadpool movie
Oh, I think that's a
because Why not?
large chance. Yeah.
Why rest your fortunes on Anthony Mackie as Captain America? Which, no offense to Anthony Mackie as an actor, but he's not a star, right? And then you have Thunderbolts, which has Florence Pugh in it, which is great. We love Florence Pugh, but like, is that enough? Is that enough to make
No,
people
no.
go?
And again,
We know
all these movies are based on stories that people had to watch on streaming shows. Whereas
Deadpool, they
Deadpool
know.
3, they know. It's a sequel to two giant hit movies that people saw in movie theaters. Deadpool 3 is not based on a Disney Plus streaming show. So
Yes.
to me, that is 99.9% why these moves were made. They wanted to get Deadpool 3 as a sure thing hit in between these other movies that are very, very possibly gonna bomb.
Yeah, this is a canny move, and they're smart for doing it.
Yep. Yep. I think the other thing that's possible is that you got the writer's strike. And the thing with Deadpool is you wait out the writer's strike. And then when you could write jokes again, you just ADR all of Deadpool's lines because he's wearing a mask the whole time.
Absolutely.
So I have
Absolutely.
a feeling Deadpool 3, which is in production, they probably are shooting that movie barely knowing what any of Deadpool's dialogue is because they don't
Uh-huh.
have to rewrite it now. They
Yeah.
could strike ends in September, October, first day that the writers are back to work. They're rewriting all of Deadpool's jokes and you're ADRing it a month before the movie comes out, and it's fine.
Oh, I'm sure they're shooting scenes where you just have Ryan Reynolds gesticulating and
Just
moving his
saying peas
head.
and carrots, peas and carrots,
Yeah,
peas and
yeah,
carrots.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then a lot of from the back, a lot
Yep.
of those that you can just loop stuff right in. I think you're right about that. That
Yeah.
is, yes, since he's wearing a mask, that is gonna be the easiest one to
Right.
just kind of pepper with additional dialogue.
Right. You don't even have to shoot him from behind. He's got the mask on.
Yeah.
Deadpool's he could be saying peas and carrots the whole 3,
Mhm.
6 months of filming, and then you just, you have your writers come back and they write all of his, fourth wall breaking, R-rated, hard PG-13 rated, hilarious jokes, and you
Yeah.
ADR them. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
but I think the main reason is they need a hit in between Thunderbolts and the Marvels and Captain America without Captain America in it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, all right. I think we've done it here. Do we have any predictions or anything that we need to get to from
The
any of
email?
our Yeah, we're running way over, so we will get to emails very soon. So if anyone sent us emails, we will get to those very soon, we promise. We do have something from Adam from the Stacks. He said that Transformers Rise of the Beast is great. Zero expectations of this film. It actually delivered, and I honestly choked up multiple times. So thank you, Adam from the Stacks. Oh, and he also says Pete Davidson, who I'm not a fan of, also does a great job as one of the Transformers. So Adam from the Stacks saw Transformers Rise of the Beast, said it was great, choked up. All right,
Wow.
now I'm interested. Now I'm interested. Hey, listen, Adam from the Stacks, I just predicted that Rise of the Beasts is going to finish ahead in its second weekend, is going to finish ahead of Elemental.
It's
You're going to have
possible.
probably more raw emotion from Rise of the Beast than you will from this new Pixar movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, wow, it's gonna be a crazy weekend.
Crazy weekend. So thank you, Adam from the Stacks. Thank you, everyone who emails us. We love getting your emails. So email us at theboboyspodcast at gmail.com. We love getting your predictions. We love getting your boots on the ground reporting. Tell us if any of these summer movies make you tear up. We want to know.
Mhm.
Email us at theboboyspodcast at gmail.com. Of course, we are YouTubers. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Tell your friends to watch the BO Boys on YouTube. Tell your friends to subscribe to the BO Boys podcast and give us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. That helps other
Mhm.
wanna BO boys, wanna BO girls, wanna BO people
People.
find the show. And of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod. We had wanna BO intern Christopher on the show last week, and he aced his 1-year academic review and will
Mhm.
be continuing as an intern for the BO Boys. He has
Yes.
earned that spot. He has earned it of getting to stay an intern. So thank you,
Mhm.
Wanna BO intern Christopher, for killing it on social media and with the video clips on there. Next week, Clayton, I'm not going to announce him because you don't put the cart before the horse. But right now, we have 2 guests lined up for our next 2 episodes. Could possibly be the biggest week in the history of the BO Boys. We've got
Mhm.
a returning favorite. I mean, one of the biggest favorites that could ever return. We've got possibly on our next episode to go over this weekend's results. And then a week from now, we might have a first timer, first time, long time guesting
Mhm.
on the show, which would be gigantic. So I don't want to announce
Yeah.
anything yet until, you know, lips are on microphones until that moment. But get ready. Next week could be one of the biggest weeks in the history of the BO Boys. And of course, the show is bigger than ever.
Oh,
June
yeah.
is on track to smash the records we set in May. June is going to smash those records. This is going to be the biggest month in the history of BO Boys for listens. So thank you to all our fans. We are on a rocket ship
Oh,
to
yeah.
box office on other planets right now. So thank you for that.
I mean, Pixar might be foundering, but we are not.
As some IPs die, other IPs take over, and the BO Boys might be one of the strongest IPs going right now. So
Yep.
thank you for everyone for making that happen.
Yep.
And yeah, Clayton, I think that's it. I think we've done it.
I cannot imagine anything that is left to say,
No.
Pat, except for until next time.
We'll
We'll
smell
smell
you
you
at
at
the
the
box
box